This was a last-minute panel change, so I'm not really prepared. I don't know what DePIN and AI is, but we're gonna figure it out together, right? I think that's the plan. Um, yeah, super nice to be here again on the stage, talking about things that I'm really passionate about and something that everyone here is super hyped as well. Let's get started by you guys introducing yourselves and what you're building.
I'll just start. So, hi everyone, I'm Yannik, co-founder and CEO at Arcium. And what we're building with Arcium is a decentralized confidential computing network that allows for arbitrary computations to be executed over fully encrypted state without ever having to decrypt that state. And what we've done with Arcium is essentially we've developed our cryptographic protocol that allows for efficient and trustless training of models and also for inference into models. And the way you can think of it is that by combining cryptography with distributed systems, we are able to bring a new kind of confidential computing, both to traditional computing but also to the blockchain space. So it's possible to run arbitrary confidential computations on existing blockchain ledgers with Arcium. At the same time, it's possible for enterprises to use our network to run confidential computations over encrypted data.
Hello, my name is Mark. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Aethir. We build distributed GPU infrastructure for gaming and AI companies.
All right. I'm Ziga, founder at OriginTrail. What we built is a decentralized knowledge graph used to alleviate some of the pains with regards to transparency and trust in supply chains. We work with companies or associations such as SCAN, associating some of the biggest retailers in the States, sharing audit reports. Swiss Federal Railways uses OriginTrail to drive passengers safe.
All right, I think they're fixing it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's not me, it's you. Yeah, so overarchingly, we drive transparency and trust in different enterprise settings, and lately we also tackle the fidelity of artificial intelligence by essentially marrying two branches of AI, neuro and symbolic. Symbolic part giving AI its very much needed reliability. Sorry for the painful sound.
Hi, my name is Yan and I represent Filecoin Foundation. We are incentive layer on top of IPFS. So I've been around the DePIN space for almost 10 years now. Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. I think if you speak closer to the mic a little bit, it helps with the noise. Speak loudly. All right, so one thing that we see a lot on the Web 1 and Web 2 is centralization brings efficiency, speed. Why building a decentralized world then?
I mean, I think it boils down to new properties that are beneficial both on a technological but also on a societal and individual level. I think in the context of decentralized confidential computing, what we are building both for the blockchain but for general execution as a whole, there is properties that only are possible due to decentralization. So to give an example, the technology that we're using, the cryptography, is based on secure multi-party computation. And as the name already suggests, multiple parties are required for this kind of protocol to function. And in order to do so in a trustless and efficient way, we require decentralization. So there's technology that natively requires decentralization and distribution. And that's also the way that I think about blockchain, because I think there's actually quite a set of applications and protocols that sort of attempt to artificially slap decentralization on products, which at the end of the day will not be sustainable. So I think decentralization on its own is not valuable. Decentralization has to help fulfill a certain end, and in our case that would be confidentiality and trustlessness.
Like you said, I think the general trade-off with decentralization is performance and quality, right? Or at least performance and control. It's very difficult to build in fully decentralized systems. It's particularly difficult to build things that enterprise customers want to use on decentralized systems. But there are a lot of advantages, natural advantages to the space. For example, scalability is generally far easier within decentralized systems. Usually, maybe not all the time, but you generally have tokens or the ability to have tokens within a decentralized system, and that gives you, the addition of a magical form of money to subsidize and grease the wheels of the network. So there are some advantages, but I think in general there are usually more reasons to build in a centralized manner if you don't abstract away the kind of the moral compunction of many projects.
Yeah, why decentralization? Mostly because we increase participation in that way. So one of our clients also stated, by the way, the guy works for Home Depot for 30 years or so, and he would say that 20 years ago he would not have thought that they would share information with Walmart, but they do so, although they're competitors, because together they elevate the playing field and make imports safer. So that's one such example. In Switzerland, for instance, we have train companies exchange data from the wheels from the trains, and you would essentially have not just one company but several companies cross the border sharing information, and that way increasing safety of passengers because they exchange information. So that's a little bit more of an enterprise reason why decentralization is good and useful. Another one is the AI aspect, because it's how DePIN serves AI and vice versa. AI did not appear for the first time last year. It already appeared back in the 60s and 70s, and it failed because it ran out of data. So in order to drive better, more reliable AI, we need to bring in more data, and we can bring in more data through decentralization. Verifiable data with verifiable lineage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. IPFS started out in the first place to try to decentralize this storage paradigm. We started off trying to disrupt AWS, GCP, and Amazon, trying to become like our own storage cloud. But we realized that it's increasingly hard in the enterprise space. So right now we're still focusing on what we're doing. I think decentralization has its benefits because it helps governance for data locality. So a lot of governments or like AI models require the data to reside in a single location. In this case, the decentralized network will help to facilitate all of these monitoring as well. So that's one benefit, and there are many others. But right now, what we're seeing for enterprise adopting us is mainly because we have like data centers or enterprise-grade data centers residing in their region. Yeah.
Nice. And what makes you wake up in the morning excited to build in a decentralized AI network? Yeah, okay, we can start going back now, yeah.
I think it's really interesting because in this space, it's quite novel, it's still new, and you see a lot of exciting new projects coming out as well. Different ways of tackling problems that have existed, and enterprise that want to tackle these problems might not necessarily have the capital to do so. So some of the Web3 programs are starting to tackle some of these problems as well. So it's really exciting to see new novel projects in this space coming out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see solutions popping up on our network. Just recently we launched a solution for European gymnastics, and you can see the Power by OriginTrail logo on their landing page, and now going further to the World's Association. So it's exciting to see real world solutions popping up for non-crypto companies. That's what drives us.
I think a lot of cool stuff happens in the centralized AI world, but I don't think they're necessarily always a net positive for society as a whole. I think that it's really interesting building in the decentralized AI space because there's a lot more mission-focused people out there building stuff that I think would be difficult to aggregate, difficult to kind of build a community around in a centralized format. So I think it's it's empowering seeing those builders doing what they're doing in the decentralized AI space, because I do think that a lot of what they're building is necessary.
For me personally, it's about building confidential, collaborative AI. So this is a new form of AI that in the traditional centralized way wouldn't be possible. And it essentially circles around multiple parties having access to very sensitive data and collaboratively being able to train a model on top of this isolated sensitive data without ever having to expose and share that data. And that's what excites me most about decentralized AI, because it allows for this data to be attached to new economic incentives, because this data can now remain encrypted. The model itself that is being created from this isolated sensitive data can also remain encrypted, and then essentially what we are able to construct is end-to-end encrypted AI with distributed ownership of this encrypted model and new ways for economic incentivization to also produce more high quality and more valuable data inputs, because there's this now economic sound encrypted privacy protecting infrastructure attached.
Nice, thank you. Let's check, like, for example, the valuation for OpenAI, right? Like, they own the infrastructure, they own the code, they own the data, and don't share anything with anyone else. What is the main challenges of you guys try to do something similar in terms of building like a decentralized AI project that has the complexity of building AI project, plus in a decentralized way, which is, I would say, like, make it like much harder, right? What is the main challenges you guys face trying to build that network?
So I would say the biggest challenge for us right now is the speed of light. So the biggest constraint we're working with, and I think that's the case for many decentralized projects, is really communication and synchronization between multiple peers. We're working on cryptographic optimizations that reduces the number of communications required by nodes in order to train models. But still, at the end of the day, there will be some sort of latency penalty compared to centralized training in this case. But I think that's why we need to build new kinds of projects. We cannot just replicate what OpenAI is doing in a decentralized way. That will, in most cases, be an inferior system. Instead, we need to think about, okay, what new kinds of properties can we introduce to the space of AI?
I think for us, building a permissionless compute network is a problem that no one has a solution for yet, right? If you're truly permissionless, then compute providers will come in while the rewards are good, but then they'll leave as soon as they're not, and you'll have this kind of arbitrage environment across systems, and it's a very difficult problem to navigate. I think that we all want to be more permissionless. We want to have that kind of perfectly open source, permissionless, trustless environment that everyone kind of aspires to within this space. But getting there and actually having a product that you can sell are almost, in some ways, two sides of the spectrum. So I think there's a sweet spot where probably a little bit more on the centralized side than we want to be, but we're progressively moving towards that decentralized permissionless space. But I would love to get there a lot quicker.
So we feel that if you really want to engage mainstream users with your decentralized AI solutions or whatever decentralized physical infrastructure that you're building, you need to also make compromises sometimes, and you need to take the decentralization on the spectrum and move it sometimes a little bit towards the centralized side. And for instance, in supply chains, that means that you're always interoperating with centralized legacy systems. But then the AI space, it also means that sometimes you need to be using the more established companies' AI models, AI systems, and then have those interoperate, let's say, with a decentralized knowledge graph, in order to get the users, paying users. So in the crypto right now, we see with a decentralized physical infrastructure space and decentralized AI space, you have growing communities, but you don't have growing business communities of users actually paying for those solutions, which is then visible in solutions you can read about, companies telling you about this Web3 company provides this kind of infrastructure to us. So you don't read a lot about this, but you do read a lot about decentralized AI, decentralized physical infrastructure. So if we want to see a little bit more of real-world enterprises, users telling their stories about using Web3, oftentimes there needs to be a compromise struck between decentralization and centralization.
I'll talk about maintaining a decentralized network. We do have a bunch of storage providers, but right now the issue is with the rising cost of maintaining those infrastructure themselves. And primarily the revenue stream is through a combination of fiat and tokens. So if the token price is not performing as well and the fiat dues are not coming in, then it's going to be an issue for them to keep maintaining the data centers that they have. They're massive data centers, so the CapEx is the cost of operation is really, really high. We see a problem in that. The second portion is more of like enterprise adoption. Some of the enterprise still have this stigma that Web3 products are not as mature, and we get stuck at compliance most of the time. Yep.
Yeah, I guess the compliance is something definitely harder, and it's gonna get harder until there's more consensus, right, from the governments. In Europe, there is the MiCA. In the US, have other. The SEC is always after a lot of crypto projects. So that's definitely really hard when you're trying to build a real business, right? And then there's always someone in your tail trying to figure out something that you're doing wrong. And that definitely makes things much, much harder. So yeah, first, kudos for you guys. I want to take off the hats to you for building in this space, which is super complicated and super complex. And I would like to think, what are you guys, how do you see this ecosystem going forward in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so from the data storage layer, we mainly focus on data. We see exciting projects like all these 3 panelists AI projects coming up, and we love for them to build on our data layer. So in the next 5 years, you will probably see more and more niche AI projects coming up. Yeah.
Hoping and let's say envisioning more quality real-world data coming into the space. What we're being threatened by is so-called model collapse. If AI models keep on training and producing results based on synthetic data only. So we need to somehow enable rails for the more quality data coming again from based on the decentralized underpinning supported by larger level participation. So if we enable that, then we're also going to see more quality AI solutions coming to fruition in both decentralized manner and centralized manner. So definitely hoping that this will be the trail in the future.
I think at the moment, if you look at training, AI training, it's a solution that, it's a process that heavily benefits from centralization, right? Communication between devices within the network is critical. You can only really do it on co-located machines with InfiniBand sort of interconnection. It's an incredibly latency sensitive ecosystem. But there are some interesting kind of teams working on the kind of distributed training side of things. And I think 5 years is a reasonably good horizon for some interesting things to develop in the distributed training space. The idea that we could connect all of the latent compute that exists in mobile phones, like I heard the Acurist guys talk about, or local PCs and laptops, and somehow create this global compute blob that you could effectively grab training objectives from is pretty interesting, and something that I think we'll probably see within maybe the next couple of years.
That exactly actually speaks to my vision. So my vision really is that federated learning will become more prominent, and federated learning will allow DePIN devices to aggregate sensoric data into models. On top of that, I think that we will have access to way more valuable data, since that data can be encrypted and can be encrypted in a decentralized training process on decentralized networks that offer this computing power. So I think there's a world and a vision that brings us to a non-dystopian future. And the dystopian future that I'm afraid of would be generalized artificial intelligence controlled by some central actor, because I feel like having access to this kind of power would corrupt any kind of entity. And so the only way to not land in this scenario would be to have encrypted generalized artificial intelligence that is being trained on encrypted data, and access to this incredible computing power is restricted algorithmically, so sort of functional encryption. So that's maybe not a 5-year vision from that I have, but I think in 5 years we will get closer to building the required infrastructure in order to not land in a dystopian future.
Yeah, and one thing that that Mark said, I also believe, is that it's a lot of projects. I see DePIN projects in multiple areas. The idea of like starting more centralized and slowly decentralizing, I believe, is the way to go for most projects. Not all of them, of course, because in the vast history of DePIN, which is not that much, a lot of projects, they start extremely decentralized. They were super, super slow to the point that sometimes they miss the boat, right? So I think that's definitely the way to go. It's a bright future for DePIN AI. And yeah, I think the last question, I think the time is up now. If you guys want to say something to the community of what you guys are building and where to reach you, yeah, let's do that.
Sure. So we would be very excited for any team that wants confidentiality within their on-chain or off-chain applications to be utilizing Arcium. What we are building at the end of the day is a distributed encrypted supercomputer that anyone can access. So feel free to join our private testnet.
Yeah, we have just opened the door to compute providers. We've been pretty closed, building really within our own close partner compute networks over the past 6 to 8 months. We're opening the door now, bringing on more compute partners. So if you have or are a GPU owner, we would love to look at incorporating those into Aethir.
Yeah, what the future holds for decentralized knowledge graph is the next generation V8 network with approximately 400 times larger scalability in terms of the knowledge assets that it can handle per day. We also open up an inception program, and we're seeing some very good results from companies and the builders coming into the inception program. And we also are onboarding a couple of very, very exciting use cases. One of them is quite a heavyweight champion in terms of the internet traffic. So we're very much looking forward within the next couple of months to be revealing both the technical advancements and the adoption advancements.
So if you're an AI project or your application layer that requires data storage, please feel free to reach out to me to do some collaborations. I would also like to work with some of the panelists that I've not spoken to as well. I think it'll be a great collaboration for Filecoin and the rest of the AI applications.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for the panelists. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys again. And yeah, let's go.